Last week, Claudine and I spent time talking about self-trust and learning to believe our own experiences. As the conversation continued, it naturally shifted into something just as important: boundaries, discernment, attachments, and how to tell the difference. Claudine gives some really helpful distinctions. Welcome to Mediumship Sparks, where we connect more deeply with spirit and source and follow the sparks of insight and inspiration that bring us greater awareness, healing, and just more flow into our lives. I'm Noelle Dean, intuitive medium, licensed therapist, and your host. A quick note before we begin: this podcast is for educational purposes only and provides general information. It is not medical or psychological advice and is not a substitute for care from a licensed health professional. I'm so grateful we get to step into this together. Let's dig in. I am more afraid of the human invader, way more than a spirit. And I've had not so great energies show up. I have a nephew who has some very serious mental health issues, and it occurred to me like, oh crap, what if that's actually somebody in spirit or energy that is bringing a lot of this craziness-ish to this young man? I worked to do some relieving of the energies that were attached to him, and then I got visited by somebody who was
Wow.
clearly upset about that. So negative energy. That's the worst that it's become a few times. That's me not having great boundaries. That wasn't that you can't deal with it when it happens, but you really have to back to trusting yourself and know yourself, really be able to put up firm lines, just like with people in
Totally.
relation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Treat spirit like people. And also don't call on spirit if you're not going to have a relationship with them. Never talk to them for 20 years and be like, oh, I need your help. Talk to them. They're listening. I don't have it on my bookshelf right now. The Unquiet Dead by Edith Fiore, I believe. Beautiful. Removing attachment. I call them attachments. A Japanese exorcism when I lived in Japan. And they helped me remove a lot of attachments. And that's when I started seeing the other side of spirituality. I saw all the angels. Wow. I was raised by angels. And then for them to be like, oh, you got a lot of attachments on you. I'm like, what? What are attachments? Like little ghosts stuck, like physical stuck energies. We can call them ghosts or we can call them negative energies. Just energies that haven't crossed over yet for whatever reason. They chose not to, so they disattach themselves to humans who are alike to them. I believe that we attract, always not consciously, right? Unconsciously attract those like not so great energies.
Yeah.
But we also release them too when we feel good. But if you're not feeling good and you're stuck in this kind of depressive state, that energy that's feeding off of you or living vicariously through you can get stuck on you. In that book, she writes really beautiful ways of removing them yourself. And it's just like, honestly, it's energy cleansing 101. That's
Gotcha.
really what it is. Just removing all the gunk that you want to let go of.
Love that. I interacted for the purpose of the podcast, but also to see if I could help somebody with schizophrenia. And there's a series of it on the podcast earlier called Am I Crazy or Connected? It's a young man who was diagnosed 26 years earlier with schizophrenia. And he had a lot of various attachments, but one in particular that I ended up striking up a bit of an inappropriate relationship with that I had to release. It was firsthand a very intense, but really good lesson on you can attract a certain kind of energy and not have good boundaries before you really realize it. They've infiltrated the LACO boundaries and you have to remove that, and you can be subject to whatever comes through because of that. I don't feel like I'm making a lot of sense, but
no, you're making perfect sense. As you're speaking, I speak through movies. Interview with the Vampire, the one with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, the 90s one. In the beginning, Louis, Brad Pitt, is talking about how he became a vampire. He's explaining. I believe in the movie, his wife and child have been taken to live. So he was gambling and whoring and just whatever, just trying to live on the wild side. He had zero will to live, and anything was open invitation is what he had said in a nutshot. And then vampire is what accepted the invitation. He had zero will, keep going, and so a vampire came over. And that, I feel like it's similar where we're in depressive state. We have zero boundaries. We just don't care anymore. We don't know what can be open to that invitation. So boundaries are really important. It's good to keep.
Absolutely.
Same reason we have locks on our doors and stuff. It's only this energy can come through. Everyone else can bounce.
I love that. I'm finding myself at night as I'm going to sleep that I am creating like a wave of energy to push everything away from our house and push it all to the ocean to be recycled, not in all
Beautiful.
directions, because there are times I can feel like the lingering of energies. They're not right with me, but I can sense that they're around. And so I'm always feeling a lot more aware of setting a clear boundary, pushing that kind of energy away, human as well as spirit.
Human is a trickier one. That's a hard one. Smiles and good intentions. And you're just like, I
Those
want to be a jerk, but
love the idea of these universal tools of keeping ourselves safe and connected to ourselves, regardless of the package that an energy or a being comes in. We need to have this integrity with ourselves and even keeping our energy clean. And when we get depressed or we have physical health issues, especially mental health issues, it's great to look at the energy. And sometimes it's helpful. I have a friend who was really struggling with depression and I'm having a conversation with the energy of her depression.
Sorry, tell me more.
No, it's all good. I was actually, ideas for readings come to me, and it occurred to me to do that with physical issues, which I've done before. I was trained in medical intuition. Anyway, I remember having this conversation with the energy of her depression. Dan, that crazy Dan, he's at it again. But Dan was also looking out for his person. There were times when she had low energy and she would overdo, and then she had to recuperate, but she didn't know how. So Dan would come visit. And then it would feel like depression, but Dan was actually helping her regenerate and recharge.
That is fascinating. That is so cool. I love the idea of talking to our depression. Earlier, you mentioned schizophrenia, and I have a story on schizophrenia. And that's something that is really hard for me because I remember when I lived in Japan, a really good friend of mine, she was normal from what I could tell. But then one day she's, I see things. And I was like, me too, as a medium. And I hear things. And I'm like, me too, it's normal. She's talking about actually physically hearing and seeing things. And I felt like I could have said different things. I could have helped her in a different way. And I have so much regret about that. Because then finding out that she was having a schizophrenic episode and what we were talking about was not on the same page. There's that fine line between intuitive or seeing and feeling energy, knowing that the physical world is right here in front of us. Physically, we can touch this, we can see that, we can speak through our mouth and hear through our ears, right?
Let's talk about this. I'm driven to help alleviate your guilt.
Thank you.
Try this on. I learned a lot talking to the young man, Scott, through the Crazier Connected interview. And then we stayed in touch. I had my own relationship with the entity. I don't use his name, but we spent a lot of time together.
Wow.
And then,
cool though.
Yeah, I got sucked into believing that this is, look, if somebody is a stalker and taunts them for 26 years, let's not pretend that they're an okay guy. And now they're trying to be different. And I was foolish and believed that. And then at some point, I could not distinguish between my thoughts and his voice.
Scary, yeah.
Mildly terrifying when I realized it. And then I was like, that's it. And I had to stop interacting. That's why I don't even use the name. But I shared about this with Scott when we were sitting in this room right here, having our initial conversation and interview, because I'm looking for what's the difference. A lot of us will worry that we're schizophrenic and not a medium. So tell me what it's like to be schizophrenic. Even before we met, I experienced the entity. And then when we're sitting here, I'm like, oh, you mean in that corner? Because I'm seeing like a red. And he's, yeah, that's him. And it was the first time that anybody had ever been able to validate what he was experiencing. So Scott didn't know if this was an actual energy or something that his brain made up from what he was told. It was in his brain, but I had a whole relationship with this entity. It wasn't
So you
in
could
his
validate.
brain. Yeah.
That's fascinating. If I was trained back then, we don't keep in contact anymore. I wonder if I could have seen that too. She didn't physically see things. She saw a door where it was a 3-story window and she walked up. So that's why I'm thinking of blurring reality. But I do see where you're going with the entity, right? And there are entities that they're probably seeing, picking up on.
Absolutely. He's a medium. And when we spoke a few months after that initial interview, I never posted that, but it's on my YouTube channel. He was like, okay, now I can see that I'm 60% a medium, 40% schizophrenic.
So
Difference. He could see, and we talked about it, he could see people in spirit with other people. He'd be walking down the street and he would see maybe the grandpa in spirit hanging out, trailing behind the guy. It was nice to help him reframe for himself. But then, yeah, there's these other visuals. It was very overwhelming for him. But it was nice that not all of it was like this confabulation in his mind or his brain chemistry.
Yeah, there's probably different levels of it. But yeah, who's to say that they're not just super sensitive and seeing this? It's so fascinating. And
Yeah.
it's hard to talk about. You're a therapist, you can say things, but I'm like, I'm none of those. So let's think about it. But yeah, it's so fascinating.
There are times I think about reaching out to people who have schizophrenia to be like, let me see if I can see what's going on with you. So I can say, oh, so Ted is real. And I'm getting, he was a real estate broker, but this other stuff I'm not. But maybe it's validating to be like, hey, 80% of what you're experiencing are just energies that are hanging on from people who haven't crossed over, or like attachment energies. It might not even be a distinguishable person, but I feel like there's a lot of middle ground that hasn't been pursued.
For sure. And everyone has different beliefs. I am somebody that does believe in ghosts because I've experienced it firsthand so many times. I see them as energies for whatever reason haven't crossed over yet. I definitely do see that because they are not crossing over because they still want to be human.
You know, how can you tell somebody's a ghost? What is that experience versus somebody who crossed over?
I'm sure everyone experiences it differently, but when I tune in, it feels denser and it feels more human-like I'm talking to a human rather than like when it's spirit, they have their essence still. They're speaking from love all the time. Ghost energy doesn't. It speaks from anger or thought forms. Interesting. Because I believe when we let go of our body and we go into spirit, we let go of the thought forms and we see our life and we're like, oh, man, heal those wounds. Our soul evolves, it strengthens. So when people speak from a soul space, a spirit space, they speak out of love. They still have their memories. They'll talk about, remember that time we went fishing, but I do believe that it's not as haunted as a person who did not cross over yet. There's transition stages as well, because I've done readings for people where their father was in a transitional space. He wasn't quite yet healed, still kind of clean.
Yeah.
So maybe there could have been a transitional space.
I don't know. My sister was in transition for that first year, and we didn't interact a whole lot at first. When she passed, we did. The grandmother would always show up as a quote supervisor. There were months where we didn't interact at all. I just didn't sense her around. And then on the 1 year anniversary, when I had set out the intention, hey, let's meet because I'd love to have you on the podcast. That was the first healed feeling conversation that we'd had together. Yeah.
I also feel them differently. When it's ghost, it does feel creepy crawly. It doesn't feel great. The little hairs on my arms stand up, or on my neck, just like getting the chills. That's kind of how I feel with ghost energy.
Interesting. A little creeped out.
Yeah, my body is saying, whoa, this is not normal. But if it's loved one, it feels like a hug, or I feel like my heart is open and like only speaking out of love when we're talking. Like it feels like it's all out of love. But when it's ghost energy, it feels more like my body, my energy is a little more contracted.
Nice distinction. Thank you for sharing that. That was very clear.
Yeah.
All of it is subtle. So we have to get really good at nuance. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And we all work differently. So the way you feel a spirit is different than the way I feel spirit. Is different than the way the listener feels a spirit. We're all unique. We're all snowflakes, and it's amazing. But
yeah,
you got to figure out how you work.
That is so true.
And no book is written. You can't read books and be like, oh, that's how it works. No, you got to go out there and, test it out.
You can't think your way through it. You have to be willing to experience it.
It's definitely, you got to pick up the street smarts. So go out there, feel the spirit. They all feel differently.
Yeah. And I just want to say to that even if you mess up, I have made some pretty egregious, stupid errors. So just encouraging our listener and also ourselves to still be willing to experiment. If you get in over your head, reach out to somebody else that can support you in spirit or in a body who can help see clearly what's happening. I had reached that point with the entity connected with Scott. I had reached out to friends for help because I was like, this is going sideways. I knew I was in over my head. There's a lot of support, even if you don't have friends that do that kind of work, reaching out to a medium through word of mouth, or if you're listening to Claudine talk and you're really resonating with what she's saying and how she's saying it and her philosophy about things, Claudine would be a beautiful person to reach out to because nothing scares her in a good way.
Humans.
So she'd be like, except, but nobody would come to either of us about human issues. But what kind of work do you do with people in your sessions? What's your ideal client and or situation that you're engaging with?
Thank you for that. Ideal clients I work with right now, I work with women who are sensitive, who know that there's more to the world than what they see, feel things. And I want to help them strengthen their self-trust and intuition so that when they see the things that they see, they have a space to speak from, that confidence. They don't feel alone. You can always call on your guides. You don't have to know who they are. Make the intention to connect to love. Say, I'm feeling really scared right now. I'm connecting to love. Love comes through now. Help me. Stay with me. Support me. This is boundary work. When I first started connecting to spirit, I always set the boundary. I'm a clear and present channel of pure source energy for the good of all. I would align my chakras, say my little mantra, and only intend to work through and from love. And I still do. So I feel like that's really important. Don't just go out there and get a Ouija board because then you're just opening up to any energy. Make sure you are opening up to love, to your guides, to those who love you, your angels, your mother, father's grandmother, great grandmother, whatever it is. They're there for us. I feel like they are. They're always around us. Just call on them.
They respect our free will. So we actually have to ask for help. We have to ask for intervention.
Totally.
What else would you like to share? What else would you want people to know about you or how to find you? What is specific to you as a medium and a reader?
I have my Instagram and my YouTube and some TikTok at Claudine Mediumship. So my YouTube page is called Mediumship Journeys with Claudine. I'm growing that. And I do have a school that I'm opening up. School being SKOOL, which is going to be opening up after the 4th of July week as a free community. Right now, I am doing a mentorship of women. We're a group of 5 women, 6 including myself. And I'm helping them through their own goddess descent, Inanna's descent, into coming out, feeling trusting of their own energy, feeling confident with how to communicate with not only spirit, but just with all the signs that they're getting from the universe. We're called the Grounded Circle. It's an 8-week mentorship. I'm probably going to do this again later on in the year, but between then and now, I'm going to open up a free school community where we can work on self-trust. So that's my goal, is the self-trust piece of the spirit communication piece. And I have a website, ClaudineMediumship.com.
And Claudine is with a C, not a K.
C, oh my gosh, with a K would be fabulous though. Claudine.
Need a little bit of phlegm maybe to get the K really out.
This was so fun. I learned so much about you and I wish we can talk forever. Ask you all the questions.
Oh, I could keep going too. I'm enjoying this completely. And it's nice to talk about some of the things that are specific mediums, but just human beings, to really dig a little bit through the dirt with somebody else who's had to dig also, to compare our findings and see we all end up on the same page. But you're right. Each of us has our own way of navigating this path. And it is frustrating that it's different, because if it was the same, we could read about it and be like, I'm normal. But it is different for everybody. I'm glad you're out there doing what you're doing and mentoring women in this deep journey of self-trust to come out on the other side of that. I'm excited for the women you're working with and the school and open community and sharing the skills you've developed. That's really powerful and generous.
Thank you for that. Community, I'm a hermit. So community has been coming through really strong recently. I need community. Even though I'm such a hermit, it's really, community is really important. Tribe.
And then you get to feel normal.
You do, because then you get to exchange stories and be like, okay, that's crazy, right? Someone gets it. Someone else gets it.
I'm almost boring in my own way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us here today. And I'm going to put Claudine's contact information in the show notes to reach out to her. This was wonderful.
This is so much fun. Thank you.
Sending them back. Thanks for spending this time with me on Mediumship Sparks. If this episode resonated with you, please like it, subscribe, rate, and certainly share it with somebody else who could benefit. If you're interested in any support I might be able to provide as you navigate your spiritual path, please feel free to check out my offerings at connectingwithnoelle.com and reach out at mediumshipsparkspodcast@gmail.com. Take good care of yourself, and I'll look forward to being with you again soon.